Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has denied colluding with Russia ahead of the 2016 election during a highly anticipated testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee Tuesday. Sessions spent much of Tuesday's hearing refusing to answer questions about President Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey and whether Trump had expressed concern to Sessions about the Attorney General's decision to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. This is Independent Senator Angus King of Maine grilling Sessions about his refusal to answer questions.
What is the legal basis for your refusal to answer these questions?
I am protecting the right of the president to assert it if he chooses, and there may be other privileges that could apply in this circumstance.
Well, I don't understand how you can have it both ways. The president can't not assert it, and you've testified that only the president can assert it, and yet I just don't understand the legal basis for your refusal to answer.
Well, it'd be premature for me to deny the president a full and intelligent choice about executive privilege.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions testifying to the Senate Intelligence Committee Tuesday. During the testimony, California Senator Kamala Harris was interrupted by Senator John McCain of Arizona as she questioned Sessions. Harris was also interrupted by McCain last week as she questioned Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, leading many to charge him with sexism. The Senate is slated to vote today on whether to impose a new series of sanctions against Russia over the alleged interference in the 2016 election. We'll have more on Sessions' testimony after headlines. Nearly 200 Democratic Congress members are suing President Trump, accusing him of violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution by accepting millions of dollars in payments from foreign governments to his companies while serving as U.S. president. The attorneys general of Maryland and D.C. have filed a similar lawsuit against the president. On Capitol Hill, the Senate's voted 53 to 47 to approve the sale of $500 million in precision-guided munitions to Saudi Arabia. A surprising number of senators voted against the deal amidst increasing concerns about the U.S.-backed Saudi-led war in Yemen, which has killed more than 10,000 people and included devastating attacks on civilians that human rights groups say may constitute war crimes. This comes as the death toll from the escalating cholera outbreak in Yemen has now topped 900. More than a quarter of the victims are children. The U.S.-backed Saudi-led bombing campaign and naval blockade has devastated Yemen's sanitation, water, and health infrastructure, with less than half of Yemen's hospitals currently operational. United Nations war crimes investigators say U.S.-led coalition airstrikes on the Syrian city of Raqqa are causing a staggering loss of civilian life. The U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces launched the offensive to retake Raqqa from ISIS a week ago. Since then, the U.S.-led coalition's been launching an average of more than a dozen airstrikes a day against Raqqa. Among the recent reported victims of the airstrikes and attacks by U.S.-backed troops are a young girl named Tal al-Jasser, a father named Mahmoud Farouk al-Khalafand, and his 4-month-old child, a boy named Khalid al-Khalaf al-Sayal, who reportedly died alongside his sister and father. Meanwhile, in more news on Syria, unnamed U.S. defense officials have told CNN the Pentagon's moved its high-mobility artillery rocket system from Jordan into Syria for the first time, positing it near the U.S. military base at Al-Tanf. In Iraq, more than 800 civilians at a refugee camp have been sickened by contaminated food provided by the British charity Help the Needy Charitable Trust. This is Mohammed Abdal-Rahman.
People were kicking the ground with their feet and screaming out of pain, a very strong pain in the stomach. We were told that we had been poisoned by food. We were taken to the clinic at night and we were treated. We were put on an IV drip and we got better. Some people remained in critical condition until the morning.
President Trump has given the Pentagon new power to decide the number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan, meaning thousands more U.S. soldiers could be deployed. The authorization came the same day Defense Secretary Jim Mattis testified to the Senate Armed Services Committee.
We're not winning in Afghanistan right now, and we will correct this as soon as possible. I believe the three things we are asking for stand on their own merit, however, as we look more broadly at the protection of the country.
There are currently about 8,400 U.S. troops in Afghanistan. The war in Afghanistan is the longest in U.S. history. In Bangladesh and northeast India, nearly 150 people have died amidst a series of landslides triggered by heavy rains and flooding. Officials say the death toll is expected to rise as first responders continue to search for missing people. In Egypt, the government's blocked access to at least 48 news sites amidst an increasing crackdown against journalists and human rights activists. Among the sites are Al Jazeera, Huffington Post's Arabic website, the self-publishing platform Medium, and the local independent news site Madamasar. American college student Otto Warmbier has returned to the United States in a coma after being detained in North Korea for more than 17 months. He was initially sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for trying to steal a propaganda sign at a North Korean hotel. He's been in a coma for over a year. North Korea says the student contracted botulism and slipped into a coma after taking a sleeping pill, although his family says that he was brutalized and terrorized and are skeptical of the explanation. Meanwhile, former NBA player Dennis Rodman has arrived in North Korea. U.S. officials say Rodman's not acting as a representative for the U.S. government. A new investigation by The Guardian's revealed workplace abuse, grueling production targets, and deplorably low pay at an Indonesian factory that makes clothing for Ivanka Trunk's label. Many of the female workers at the factory in West Java say the pay is so low they live in constant debt and can't afford to live with their own children. This comes as 3 Chinese activists with the group China Labor Watch continue to be imprisoned after they were arrested while investigating labor conditions at a Chinese factory manufacturing Ivanka Trump brand shoes. In London, at least 6 people have died and 20 more in critical condition amidst a raging fire at a 24-story apartment building in West London this morning. The cause of the fire is not known. Hundreds of firefighters battled the blaze, which the commissioner said is the worst he's seen in 29 years on the job in London. In Pakistan, journalists staged nationwide protests denouncing the assassination of journalist Bakshish Elahi, who was shot to death Sunday on his way to the office. Elahi was the bureau chief of the daily newspaper K2 Times. Back in the United States, President Trump and top lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, continue their efforts to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Multiple past Republican efforts to craft and pass their own health care law have failed. On Tuesday, Trump held a lunch with 13 Republican senators to discuss the latest effort. He also slammed the Affordable Care Act while speaking in Wisconsin Tuesday.
These are sad but familiar stories in Wisconsin, where Obamacare premiums have doubled. Obamacare is one of the greatest catastrophes that our country has signed into law, and the victims are innocent, hardworking Americans.
In Michigan, lawyers have filed an emergency injunction to block the deportation of a group of Iraqis. In recent days, more than 100 Iraqis have been arrested by immigration and customs enforcement agents in one of the biggest roundups in years. Advocates say the Iraqis, many of whom are Christian, could face torture and persecution back in Iraq. Meanwhile, in Westchester County, New York, classmates and residents are demanding the release of high school student Diego Puma Masanacela, who was arrested by ICE agents on the same day as his senior prom. He and his mom are facing deportation to Ecuador. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick is taking an indefinite leave of absence amidst a scandal over sexual harassment at the Wall Street-backed ride-hailing company. On Tuesday, billionaire David Bonderman also resigned from Uber's board after making disparaging comments about women at a board meeting intended to address sexual harassment, saying if there were more women on the board, quote, it's much more likely to be more talking. In Virginia, former Republican National Committee Chair Ed Gillespie won a narrow victory over his Trump-supporting challenger in the Republican primary for Virginia's governor's race. His challenger, Corey Stewart, ran his campaign on his loyalty to President Trump. While Gillespie was expected to win by a wide margin, he ended up winning by only a few thousand votes. He'll now face Democratic Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam in November. And a new analysis of 2016 data shows 5 men now possess as much wealth as half the world's population combined. The 5 men, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, Spanish businessman Amancio Ortega, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, American investor Warren Buffett, and Mexican telecommunications tycoon Carlos Slim combined hold $400 billion. Slim is a major shareholder in the New York Times, while Bezos owns the Washington Post. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.